Did someone tell you today you're terrific? I love different mugs. I love traveling and I love going places where I can use different mugs because I like my coffee in the morning to get us started. So welcome to day 105 of our Be a Better You annual challenge. Today we're talking about kind of a hodgepodge of subjects, but they're all related. They all can negatively impact our relationships if we're not careful. They are blame, excuses. I'm going to talk about these each. I'm going to give a couple of examples and then talk about the impact of them in a couple different relationships. And then I will give us a journaling to talk about and do and ask ourselves or go about our day and ask ourselves 3 questions and just write in our journal, right? I always write in my annual challenge book, which is a journal. It ends up being a journal by the end of the year. So why? Well, all of these things we do as a defense mechanism, right? We're afraid to be vulnerable, or we want to avoid pain or hurt or disappointment or rejection. Excuses, for example, are stories where we avoid a responsibility. We don't want to take responsibility. So we'll say things like, I was just too tired to call, or I didn't think that it was a big deal, or that's just how I am. This is one of my most dreaded. I was married to a gentleman who used that all the time whenever he didn't want to take responsibility for something, or whenever he didn't want to be held accountable for the things he said and did. In a romantic relationship, one partner constantly forgets to plan dates or do something. I'll give an example, and makes the excuse that they're not good at that kind of thing, or that's just the way they are. They don't like to plan things. Over time, the other person starts to feel uncared for, neglected, or like they're not loved. They get emotionally neglected and they want to distance themselves from the relationship. In friendship, this can show up when you have a friend that never shows up for important things. They're invited, but they never show up, and they always have an excuse. Oh, I forgot, there was traffic, I was at work, whatever it might be. But over time, the pattern sends a message that, hey, you and your priorities are not the same as mine. Therefore, I'm not going to show up for things. You can't be counted on. You're not dependable. So how do you fix this? Well, take radical ownership. Own your part of the situation, right? So if you're only 10% to blame or 10% at fault for anything, own that 10% and be accountable to that. Accountability is love in action. It really, really is. If I take responsibility and accountability for the things I do and say, I'm demonstrating to the other person that they're important, that I care enough about them to realize that I'm not perfect either, and I'm going to make mistakes. Blame, on the other hand, is when we shift our discomfort, our own pain or failures onto someone else. It's beyond excuses. It's taking the excuse that we're making and blaming it on someone else and saying it's their responsibility, not mine. So, for example, in a marriage, if a spouse gets angry and yells at you and says, "You make me so angry. Why do you always do this to me?" Or I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't be angry and screaming if you didn't push my buttons. Okay, really? In a family relationship, a parent says, "If you had listened to me growing up, you wouldn't be struggling now." Ouch. That just sends the message to the child that you don't respect their independence or their reality, what's going on in their life and their situation. At work, it might show up as a teammate who drops the ball, doesn't do what they say they're going to do, and then blames everybody else for not helping. Even though he or she never asked for help, they're going to blame everybody else, and that breeds distrust and resentment. If people don't do what they say they're going to do in any relationship, it erodes the relationship, if not destroys it altogether. So how do we go about fixing that? Well, we pause, we reflect, we ask ourselves, what part of this is my responsibility? And even, again, if it's only 10%, we take responsibility for that and we fix what we can, and we communicate in ways that are powerful, and hope that we can help the other person to be more responsible as well. Reasons sound great on the surface, right? Well, this is the reason I couldn't do that. This is the reason I didn't do that. In a relationship, a romantic relationship, it might be, I cheated because I was lonely. Okay. In a friendship, I stopped reaching out because I thought you were too busy. In a sibling relationship, I didn't come around because Dad was always harder on me than you. Reasons sound valid on the surface, but they really are just used. And when they're used as an endpoint, as this is my explanation, I'm not going forward from this, then they destroy a relationship. If they're used as a starting point to say, yeah, this is why I did that or said that or didn't show up, but it's a starting point to move the relationship forward and be better in the next time, the next scenario. The friend that never shows up for anything, she makes an excuse or a reason or blames someone, but then says and shows up for the next event that's important to you. We can always grow and change in our relationships. So how do we fix this one? Acknowledge your reason, but make that a starting point, and then move through that and be better next time. Do what you say you're going to do. I think we could all be more consistent and honor our own commitments that we make to ourselves, because we can fool some of the people some of the time. We can fool all of the people some of the time, but we can never fool ourselves. We always know if we said we were going to do something and then we didn't do it. We also always know if we're blaming someone else, if we're making excuses, if we are doing things that aren't in the relationship in our best interest. And that's fine if you don't want to be in a relationship. But if you do want to have relationships like friendships, team members, people that you work with, significant others, we have to take responsibility for these things. Now, the final thing I want to talk about today, and it's because I didn't want to spend a whole day on it, is distractions. We are more distracted now than ever with streaming television, news, social media. All of the technological advances that are awesome in some ways can serve as major distractions in other ways. Have you been to a restaurant recently? You'll see couples out at a table and they're both just looking at their phones. They're not even talking to each other. You'll see people walking down the street with their phone in their face and then they trip on the sidewalk because they're not paying attention to where they're walking. We are so distracted. We are inundated and have been for at least the last 2 decades with information overload. And now it's not even truth information that we're getting overloaded with. We're getting overloaded with propaganda in addition to all of the information that we were being bombarded with for the last couple of decades. So how do we fix that, right? Instead of giving you examples, let's just talk about how to fix it. And you'll see a common pattern here. Every one of them involves us taking personal responsibility for us using these behaviors. So we fix this by being present, being where our feet are, and actually engaging with other human beings. That shows them love and respect, and that's kind of what it's all about. So what are we going to do today for an action item? Super simple. Ask yourself these 3 questions and then journal about it in your annual challenge journal or notebook. Number 1, where have I been making excuses or blaming others in my relationship? Pick any relationship and ask yourself, where have I been not showing up and making excuses for why I'm not showing up? Or where am I blaming the other person for something that actually is probably on me and my responsibility? Number 2, is there a reason I've been holding on to that's keeping me from reconnecting? Do you have a relationship where you have kind of let it go by the wayside? And is there a reason that you're not still in that relationship? If there is, stay out of it. If there isn't, why not reconnect? And then 3rd and final question is, what's one distraction that you can eliminate this week and be more present with someone that you love? I'm a terrible multitasker. I used to always be multitasking, and I'm trying these days to be a little more present. I'm not there yet. I know I've got a long way to go. So I'll be working on that one today. So that's our topic for today. Excuses, blame, reasons, and distractions. Think about these things today and how you can make them better in your life. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, have an awesome day. And I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow because you are terrific. Have a great day.